There it is again. That thing your mind does when everything is quiet, when there's nothing urgent, nothing demanding, nothing that needs you right now, and yet your mind finds something. It always finds something. A conversation from 3 days ago, a decision you made last year, a message you haven't answered, a version of tomorrow that hasn't happened yet and probably won't happen like that, but your mind is already there, already living it, already bracing for it. You've tried to stop. You know the loop. You can see it happening, which is almost worse, isn't it? Watching yourself think too much while thinking too much about watching yourself think too much. And somewhere underneath all of that, there is a word people use, overthinking, like it's a habit you picked up, like you could just put it down. But here is something that might be worth sitting with for a moment. What if it isn't overthinking? What if the thinking isn't the thing? It's what the thinking is keeping you from. The mind is extraordinary at this, at filling space. Give it a quiet evening and it will find 17 things to turn over. Give it a moment of stillness and it will reach for something. A worry, a memory, a hypothetical, like it doesn't quite trust what happens when it stops. And the strange thing is, it's not random. The things your mind returns to aren't chosen carelessly. There is a logic to what it circles back to. The conversation where you said something you wish you hadn't. The one where you didn't say the thing you needed to say, the relationship that ended without a clean explanation, the choice that felt right at the time and you're still not sure about. Your mind keeps going back because it believes, on some level, that if it thinks about it enough, it will arrive somewhere, some resolution, some understanding, some version of events that finally make sense and can be put away. It is trying to finish something. The problem is that some things don't finish that way. Some things can't be thought into resolution, and the mind that doesn't know this will keep circling, keep reaching, keep returning, convinced that the answer is one more pass away. This is what overthinking looks like from the inside. Not chaos, not weakness. A mind doing exactly what it was built to do. Problem solving, applied to something that isn't actually a problem to be solved, but there's something underneath that pattern worth looking at more closely. Notice what happens right before the thinking starts, not during, before. There is usually a moment, brief, easy to miss, where something begins to surface, a feeling that doesn't have a clean name yet, a discomfort that is just starting to take shape, something that, if you stayed with it, would ask something of you. And then, almost before you notice it's there, the thinking begins. The mind moves in immediately, starts analyzing, contextualizing, reviewing, builds a structure of thoughts around the feeling so quickly that by the time you're aware of what's happening, you're already 3 layers deep into a loop. And the original feeling is somewhere underneath all of it, quiet and unexamined. This is what the thinking is doing, not solving, covering. It's not a flaw in the way your mind works. It's actually quite sophisticated. The mind learned at some point, maybe early, maybe through something specific, maybe just through years of practice. That thinking is safer than feeling. That analysis keeps you at a controlled distance from the thing that's actually happening inside you. So when something uncomfortable starts to surface, the mind offers you a task. Think about this. Review that. Anticipate the next thing. And you take it. Not because you're avoidant, not because you're broken, but because the mind made it feel like that's what needed to happen. The loop isn't the problem. The loop is the solution the mind found to a different problem. And that different problem is what's worth paying attention to. It's rarely the thing you think you're thinking about. The conversation you keep replaying. It isn't really about what was said. It's about what the conversation made you feel about yourself. About being misunderstood. About not being enough. About having needed something and not gotten it. The decision you keep second-guessing. It isn't really about whether you made the right choice. It's about the fear underneath the choice. The possibility that you don't trust yourself, that you never quite trust yourself. The future you keep rehearsing. It isn't really about preparation. It's about a feeling that the present somehow isn't safe, that you need to get ahead of things, that if you stop watching, something will happen that you won't be able to handle. Underneath most loops, there is something like this, a feeling that didn't get to finish arriving, a question that the mind decided was too much to look at directly, an emotion that started and then got rerouted into thinking, before it had the chance to actually be felt. And here is the thing about feelings that don't get to arrive. They don't go away, they wait. They become the thing the loop keeps circling without landing on. They become the hum underneath the thinking that makes it impossible to stop. The mind isn't overthinking because it's broken. It's overthinking because something is asking to be felt. And the mind found a way to stay very, very busy instead. There is a philosopher named Carl Jung who spent his life studying the interior of the human mind. Not the mind as a machine to be optimized, but the mind as a place, complex, layered, full of things that exist whether or not we're willing to look at them. He noticed something that most people discover eventually, usually the hard way, that whatever we refuse to feel doesn't dissolve. It moves, it finds other forms. It shows up sideways, in the loops we can't escape, in the patterns we can't explain, in the exhaustion of a body that has been bracing against something it hasn't been allowed to name. He called it the shadow, not in a dramatic sense, just the simple idea that what we don't acknowledge doesn't disappear. It waits in the places we don't look. And closer to our own time, there are psychologists who describe something they call experiential avoidance, the perfectly human tendency to manage internal experience through distance, thought, distraction, activity, rather than direct contact. The research is consistent. The more energy we spend avoiding a feeling, the more present that feeling becomes. The mind that works very hard not to feel something ends up organized entirely around that thing. None of this is a diagnosis. None of it means something is wrong with you. It means your mind found a strategy, a very understandable strategy. And strategies can be seen, or even when they can't be instantly changed. There is a cost to this though. The loop takes up space, real space, the kind that would otherwise be available for things that aren't the loop. The kind of space where you might notice what's actually happening in the room you're in, what the person across from you is actually saying, what you actually want underneath all the noise of what you're supposed to want. The mind that is always managing, always reviewing, always anticipating, always bracing, is a mind that is never quite here, never quite resting inside this moment because this moment hasn't been pre-cleared, hasn't been checked for threats, hasn't been approved. And the exhaustion that comes from this isn't the kind that sleep fixes. You can sleep 8 hours and wake up already tired because the management didn't stop. It ran through the night in quieter forms, surfacing in dreams, tensing in the body, waiting for morning to resume. This is what living inside the loop costs, not just the thinking itself, but the absence underneath it. The life that goes by in the background while the mind is somewhere else doing the work of not feeling something. You already know this. Some part of you already knows that the thinking isn't solving anything, that the loop doesn't land, that you come out of an hour of going over the same thing, feeling more tired, not less, and no closer to anything resembling peace. The loop isn't giving you what it promises. So here is something to consider. Not a solution, not a technique, just a shift in where you're looking. The next time you notice the loop starting, the next time you catch the mind reaching for the familiar circuit, don't try to stop the thinking. Don't try to redirect it or override it or talk yourself out of it. Instead, just for a moment, ask a different question. Not, what am I thinking about? But, what am I not feeling right now? It doesn't have to go anywhere. You don't have to answer it completely. You don't have to dive into whatever comes up or solve it or understand it fully. You just have to let the question exist for a moment before the thinking rushes in to cover it. Because the thinking isn't the problem. The thinking is a very loyal response to something that needed protection. And that something, whatever it is, has been waiting a long time to be acknowledged, even quietly, even partially, even just for a second. You're not overthinking, you're avoiding something. And the difference between those two sentences is the difference between believing you have a broken mind and recognizing that you have a mind that learned to protect you. And maybe, just maybe, doesn't need to work quite that hard anymore. The loop will come back. It will. This isn't a video that ends the loop. Nothing does that in 17 minutes. Maybe nothing does that at all. maybe the goal isn't to end it, but to stop being afraid of what it's covering. Because underneath the thinking, there is something that has been trying to arrive for a long time. Something that isn't as dangerous as the mind decided it was. Something that, if you could stay with it for a moment without immediately reaching for a thought to put on top of it, might just be a feeling, just a feeling. The kind that comes and moves through and leaves something cleaner behind it. You don't have to fix your mind, you just have to get a little curious about what it's been so busy protecting you from. That's a different kind of question to live with, not, how do I stop thinking so much? But what is all this thinking trying so hard not to let me feel? If this reached somewhere real for you, if something in here named something you've been carrying without quite being able to say what it was, subscribing means the next one will find you too. This channel exists for the quiet moments between everything else. For the thoughts that don't have a clean place to land, leave a comment if you want. What stayed with you from this? What question are you sitting with now? I'd genuinely like to know.